Welcome to the IELTS Focus.
All right, let's jump right in. So, what on earth does IELTS even stand for? It's the International English Language Testing System. And really, all it is this huge, globally recognized test that checks your English skills if you're looking to study or work somewhere that's an English-speaking environment. The test itself looks at 4 core skills. You've got listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Pretty standard stuff, right? The whole idea is to get a really clear picture of your abilities in each of these key areas. Okay, now this is super important. IELTS isn't just one single test. There are actually 2 different versions, academic and general training. So the big question is, which one is the right one for you? Well, it all boils down to what you're planning to do. If you're aiming for university or some other kind of higher education, you're going to need the academic test. But if your goal is more about working or immigration or just dealing with everyday life in an English-speaking country, then the general training version is the one for you. But here's a little something to make things easier. The listening and the speaking parts of the test, they are exactly the same no matter which version you take. The real differences where you really have to focus your prep are in the reading and writing sections. And here's where you can see those differences side by side. For academic reading, get ready for long, dense texts. Think journals and academic articles. General training reading is way more practical, with things like ads or work handbooks. The biggest split, though, is writing task 1. Academic folks have to describe a chart or graph. General training people, you're going to be writing a letter. Now, task 2 is an essay for both, but the general training essay can be just a little more personal. So let's get into the scores. You've taken the test. Now what? Well, IELTS uses this really straightforward 9-band scale. And here's the best part. There is no pass or fail. You just get a score from a 1 to a 9 that shows your level of English. Simple as that. When you get your results back, you're not just going to see one number. Nope. You'll actually get 5. You get a score for listening, a score for reading, 1 for writing, 1 for speaking, and then you get your final overall band score. And how do they come up with that overall score? It's pretty simple, actually. They just take your 4 individual scores, add them all up, and divide by 4 to get the average. But here's the crucial last step. They round that average score to the nearest whole or half band, so you'll end up with something like a 7.0 or a 7.5. Now listen closely, because this next part is a really important piece of info. It's an official rule, and it can make a huge difference. If your average score happens to end in 0.25, it gets rounded up to the next half band. I know it sounds like a tiny detail, but this little rule can be the one thing that bumps you up to the score you need. It's a real game changer. Let's make this real with an example. So imagine you get a 6.5 in listening, 6.5 in reading, a 5.0 in writing, and a 7.0 in speaking. Add them up, divide by 4, and your average is exactly 6.25. Now, because of that special rounding rule we just talked about, that 6.25 gets boosted, and your official overall band score is a 6.5. And this works for all the scores, always rounding to the nearest half or whole band. So an average like 6.125 is closer to 6, so it rounds down to a 6.0. On the flip side, something like a 3.875, well, that's closer to 4.0, so it rounds up. The key thing to remember is that any average ending in 0.25 or 0.75 will always round up. So there you have it. That's a quick tour of the IELTS test and its unique scoring system. Just knowing how all these pieces fit together is a massive first step in your preparation. So that leaves just one last question. What's the score you're aiming for?